Have you ever stopped to think about how a company like Disney manages to release a blockbuster movie, broadcast a live sports game, and run a theme park halfway across the world, all at the same time? It's not magic, not at all. It's all by design. And today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the invisible blueprint that makes it all happen, their management structure.
So, let's start with a question. What could a massive entertainment empire, a public broadcaster like the BBC, and your local news team possibly have in common? I mean, on the surface, they seem worlds apart, right? But the real secret, is in how they organize their people to get the job done.
And at the very heart of all this is something called the management structure. The best way to think about it is like a company's skeleton. You can't see it from the outside, but it's that internal framework that gives the whole organization its shape. It defines how power flows, and it dictates how everybody communicates with each other. Without it, you just have, well, a jumbled mess.
All right, so where do we start? Well, we've got to start with the foundation of most organizations out there, the classic pyramid. It's the most traditional, the most recognizable model, and honestly, for a very good reason.
Now, the most common version of this pyramid is what's called the functional structure. And the logic here, it's actually pretty simple, but it's super powerful. You group people together based on their skills. It's kind of like a perfectly organized toolbox. All the screwdrivers go in one section, all the hammers in another.
So let's make this real for a second. In immediate companies, say like Nigeria's Channels Television, that toolbox would have compartments for the news department, the production folks, the tech and engineering teams, marketing, and of course, administration. Each one of these departments basically becomes its own little world, just filled with specialists. So, what's the upside to doing it this way? Well, when you put a bunch of experts together, they get even better at what they do. Training becomes way more streamlined, and the career path is crystal clear. A junior reporter knows exactly what they need to do to become a senior editor. And because of all that, productivity inside each department can just soar. But, and there's always a but, right? There's a catch. This intense focus creates what we call silos. The news department might have no idea what marketing is doing, which leads to a major disconnect. And if you have a project that needs both teams, oh man, decisions can grind to a halt because everything has to travel up one side of the pyramid and all the way down the other. You can even get departments competing against each other instead of working toward the company's main goal. So you might be wondering, what's the real difference between a functional and a purely hierarchical structure? I mean, they both look like pyramids. The key is the organizing principle. Functional is all about organizing by skill, creating those departments of experts. Hierarchical, on the other hand, is purely about rank, a clear top-to-bottom chain of command for the whole company. Okay, so that pyramid structure works great for a single company doing one main thing. But what happens when a company gets so mind-bogglingly big that it's doing dozens of things at once? How in the world do you manage an empire that stretches across movies, theme parks, and sports broadcasting?
Well, you evolve. And the solution for these giants is the divisional structure. Basically, you break the massive company down into smaller, semi-independent units. Each one of these divisions acts almost like its own mini-company, with its own focus on a specific product, a specific market, or even a region of the world.
And there is no better example of this on the planet than Disney. Just look at this. They slice up their empire into these huge divisions. You've got Disney Entertainment for streaming and movies, ESPN for all things sports, and Disney Experiences for the parks and merchandise. Each one of these is a multi-billion-dollar business, all living under one single corporate umbrella. It's incredible. And this model, it's pretty much the standard for the big players. Warner Bros. Discovery uses it to manage its international brands like CNN and HBO in their own divisions. Over in Africa, you see MultiChoice Group doing the exact same thing, organizing by service. So you've got DSTV, GoTV, SuperSport, and Showmax, all as separate units. Now, the real beauty of this is flexibility. Each division can react super quickly to its own market, and accountability is totally clear. If one division is failing, you know exactly who's responsible. The downside? It can get really expensive. You might have duplicate teams for marketing or HR in every single division. And just like those functional silos, these big divisions can start competing against each other for resources. But hey, the world changes, right? And those classic pyramids aren't the only game in town anymore. The rise of digital media and the absolute need for speed have led to some really interesting, more modern, more agile structures. So let's dive into these new ways of working. First up is the flat structure. This model basically gets rid of most of the middle management, creating a really short chain of command.
The whole goal here is to empower employees and make communication lightning fast. You see this a lot in digital-first news outlets, places like Sahara Reporters, where speed is literally everything.
And then you've got the matrix structure. Now this one's a hybrid, and it's designed specifically for project-based work. The easiest way to wrap your head around it is to just imagine you have two bosses. That's right, two bosses. You report to your regular department head, say the head of video production, and you also report to a project manager who's leading, for example, a specific documentary you're working on.
So how do you choose between these two? Well, the flat structure is all about simplicity and speed. It's perfect for startups and small, agile teams. The matrix, on the other hand, is built for maximum collaboration. It lets a company share its experts across a bunch of complex projects without having to constantly reorganize everyone.
And here's a fantastic real-world example, the BBC. They use a matrix structure. So a journalist there might report to the head of the entire news department, that's their functional manager, but they'll also report to the manager of a specific website or a TV program or a radio show. Those are their project managers. This lets them take one story and expertly adapt it for all these different platforms, using their people really efficiently.
So after all that, after looking at pyramids and empires and these kind of crazy matrices, which one is actually the best? Well, here's the truth. There is no single best structure. It is all about finding the right fit for the mission. This chart here really lays it all out, doesn't it? If you need stability and deep expertise, you go functional. If you're a massive, diverse company, you pretty much have to go divisional. If you need to move incredibly fast, you go flat. And if you're juggling a ton of complex, overlapping projects, the matrix is probably your answer. You see, it's all about trade-offs. So the most crucial point, the main takeaway from all of this, is that a management structure isn't just a boring org chart. It's a strategic tool. The right blueprint absolutely has to align with a company's goals, its size, and the industry it's in. A structure that works perfectly for a tiny digital startup would completely cripple a global giant, and of course vice versa. So next time you're streaming a movie, or listening to a broadcast, or even just looking around your own workplace, take a second and think about that invisible framework holding it all together. Now that you've seen the blueprint, can you spot the skeleton?